how about you just focus on you and stop worrying about anyone else at all?
Thanks so much for coming on to the show, my G.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, man. So we've been talking heaps, and we've been talking about like your life, especially off camera. And what I really value about you is just how you're like really setting the standard at the moment. Like fit as hell.
Thank you.
Fit as hell. He's got a great relationship. And business crushing it at the moment.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So, like, I really wanted to get into, like, your one, because I think last time when we were chatting, like, something that really motivated me, just, like, getting fucking straight into it, was mentioning how you were, like, a tradie, there was drugs, alcohol, all that stuff involved, and then you just, like, sort of flicked a switch to now, like, flying, essentially. Like, you've just been, like, boom, 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 boom. Like, over the last 4 months, you said, like, your business doubled, quadrupled, or something, like, insane. So, I sort of want to know a little bit about the journey of what, like, went from, like, you know, trading all the things to, like, you know what, I'm actually going to start entrepreneurship and, like, chase this passion with everything that I've got.
How to enter into this? I think that the thing that kind of happened is just I reached like the threshold of pain that was kind of necessary for me to reach, and I think that's probably the simplest way to do it, or to talk about it. And I think reflecting back onto it, I was in a stage of my life where I was like, I always just knew that I was like, this isn't it. You know what I mean? I'm like, what you're doing, bro, it ain't fucking it. You're living this life, you're sniffing drugs every day, you're fucking living like an absolute degenerate, you're fucking people around you left, right and center. You can't look at yourself in the mirror because you're just like ashamed of who you are. And I just kept doing it, you know what I mean? Because my environment and the way that my life had been built, my little consistency bias in my brain was just like, this is who you are, and you're getting like recognition from people around you that this is right, and you're getting like positive kind of like, yes, Sasha, yes, you're fucking killing it. Look how much you can sniff on the weekend and all that shit, right? So I had a lot of like support in that, and so it kind of just took me reaching a point of just absolute kind of like pain, where I was just like, had to realize or had to kind of break. And I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I think it was ownership. I had no ownership of my life at all. I was blaming everyone else. And I remember specifically thinking in so many of these times I had like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, massive drug addiction.
How'd you get the $100,000 debt?
Just from like car loans, credit cards, like just borrowing money for shit that I didn't need. Like I literally being like, all right, man, like you're living like a degenerate, but I want to look like a sick cunt. At least if I drive a nice car and have nice clothes and do this shit, like, and so I just borrowed heaps of money to do that shit.
Was that credit card stuff?
Yeah, credit cards, personal loans, all of it. And it racked up to be about 150 grand when I was like 23, 24.
Whoa.
Spoke to the banks. The banks were like, all right, Sasha, like, you know, we can help you. We'll restructure this finance. We'll put you we'll elongate the kind of loan term to 12 years. This was by the time I was like just turning 25. So I would have been 37 by the time I paid all that debt off. And I remember just like sitting in that of just like, holy fuck, you've just completely railroaded the next 12 years of your life. Like you're done. Like I looked at my income at the end of each week after all these deductions came out, and it was like $280 I had left after loans, payments, all that shit. I was like, what are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? I had this one job that I was like holding on to, and I remember just being like,
what was the job?
Just like a site foreman, kind of like construction. That I was a carpenter, and then I started working to like a site foreman job, and it was just complete dead end. I remember looking down the line of where I was heading and just being like, you're fucked. Absolutely fucked. Like there's nothing, there's no hope, there's no idea of like how this can improve. And there was just like extreme pain. And then the chick I was dating at the time just finally got sick of me as well, because I would have got sick of myself long before then. And just, you know, kicked me out. Actually, she took all the stuff out of the house we were living in, just cleaned it out and left.
Like what? Like
everything, all the furniture, all my clothes. No, she just left.
You moved out together?
No, yeah, we moved out together. We lived in this little apartment, and
in Melbourne?
No, in Brisbane.
Oh, in Brisbane.
We're in Brisbane, and so I remember just coming home from work after work one day, and there was just like nothing in the house, and everything was gone, and I was like,
whoa, that's like guy's worst fear, dude. Getting home, like just moved everything.
Everything's gone, and then I just had like a couple of clothes on the bed and like my mattress on the floor, and I was like, holy fuck! I'm like, this is it. This is you. I'm like, this is you.
Dude, you lived through, I'm just going to change this here. You lived through the guy in the goals experience, because I read that book and recommended.
Coming home.
That's literally what happened to him. I'm like,
that's actually a good connection. I didn't think about that.
I was like, that's you, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so for me, I think that wasn't actually the biggest thing. So that was bad. And then like there was a period not too long after that where I think she kind of like came home and she was like, and I think I was still just like off my head and drugged up. And she came home to get some like more shit from the house. And she just looked at me and she's just like, you disgusting, pathetic, fucking waste of my whole life. Like,
Whoa.
I was just like sitting there and for some reason, I don't even know what it was or what the fuck like came into me or came over me, but I was just like busted and drugged up. But I was like, I'm gonna be successful as fuck. Watch.
So what were you like busted and drugged up from? Was it just like
just keeps with cocaine? I was just using it
in the middle of the day?
Yeah. Like during, like most days, because I was working night shifts at the time, so I'd like wake up and just use drugs. Like I was like, no, I'm not gonna use drugs today, and just like sniff drugs. Like most days.
Like a bag a night or like?
Yeah, I'd say like probably 3 to 4 grams a week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just the whole combination of all those things like happening and consistently just being like, I don't know. Like I think each person has their own threshold of pain they need to experience. Similar story. I was with my little brother recently, and he's like going through a lot of shit at the moment. I kind of hope he listens to this. And he was like complaining about all this stuff in his life. He was talking about like, I don't know, arrests with the police and all these bad things that he's doing. And he's like, man, I'm just so sick of it. Like, and he's like getting really, really emotional. I'm like, well, you're not fucking sick enough. You're not. Unfortunately, bro, you know what I mean? Keep fucking going, keep dropping. And that was for me, it was like that point that I kind of reached was whatever I needed to reach, whatever I needed to learn was like me taking ownership over who I was and what I was doing to myself. I remember just like looking in the mirror like this one morning and I was just like hated everything about myself, everything, like how I looked, what I was like thinking in my head, my environment, everything. I was like just resenting everything about myself, and I was like, you're a fucking absolute piece of shit. So it was like, for me, that was enough to initiate at least like the beginning stages of like change, which for me just started out with being like, how about you just like wake up on time? Like, how about you just like, when you say you're going to get up in the morning, like actually fucking get up. And that was it. Like, it was fucked, dude. Like, and it started like just literally being like, all right, well, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and how about you just get out of bed? And how about you just make your bed? And then how about today, like you just like put an application in for a job that's better than your job you got right now. And so over time it was just like slow and insanely painful and insanely like massive amounts of like weight of the previous version of me pulling me back there. Like I was like, I really want to do this, and I really want to be consistent with like wake up on time and make my bed. And the pressure of like, come do this, Sasha, come be this, come hang out with us, come fucking party. Who the fuck are you? Why wouldn't you do like massive. And so, I just had enough kind of, whether it was like the pain and the absolute terror of like who I would be and how my life would be if I continued that way, it kind of stuck with me. A little bit of me being like, fuck you to my girlfriend at the time, because I was like, wanted to show her and wanted to show, I guess, like the world, like I can actually be something, you know what I mean? Because I just felt like a worthless fucking loser.
Did you think that her sort of calling you forward and being like, wow, look at you, you piece, do you think that was like a sort of turning point that really like like flicked the switch that like lit the flame? Do you reckon like that moment?
Yeah, I think in a way it was, yeah. I never, I always think there's multiple, you know what I mean? I never think there's like just the one single moment. I think there's just like, it's a culmination of events and moments and awareness, kind of like expansion that happens, that you eventually come to this realization. You're like, this isn't working, you know what I mean? And it's a very, very, very challenging thing, like to have that complete, like, this is all your fucking fault. You know what I mean? To sit there and to know that that's actually true and be like, no one to blame. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You'd feel like this like heavy energy, and it's like the weight of knowing that you have to fix it, the weight of knowing like you're so overwhelmed with like, where do I even start? What do I even do? How do I even face all of that shit? You know what I mean? I've been running for so fucking long, like it's huge, fucking huge, dude.
Did you, like in regards to that, did you seek out mentorship?
Like I was thinking about, just as we were about to jump in here, and I was thinking like, the difference I think between how things are today and how things are or were back then is like there wasn't as much of like the whole like you have so much access to so many people or mentors or guidance or advice or help. Like there wasn't really anything, you know what I mean? I think, but in that stage, there was pretty, I think maybe like just basic stuff. There wasn't as much in the market of like, I can actually find and search and get some help for this particular thing, and there's 20 different people, and I like the way that he talks and the way that he looks, I'm going to learn. Like there wasn't that, you know? So initially what it was there was a couple of things that happened. So I started kind of like speaking to, and you know, coming close, this was like several months afterwards, speaking to and getting close with my now wife. And that was a big driving force for me to be like, clean yourself up.
So before you started business, you started talking to her?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, correct. So I was just like working in a job, and I was kind of still in this phase of like, I'm trying to really clean my life up. Like this is ridiculously hard, and my whole environment was like, stay where you are, motherfucker. Like, you know, like you ain't fucking leaving. Like it was so
was she
much
in business?
No. She just worked job, and I don't know. I just had so much like respect for her, and I really wanted to, I guess, just like be a better version of me for her, because I really loved the idea of like our life together and who I would be. Like I just had this vision where I was like, you're my fucking wife. You know what I mean? Like straight away, and I was like, this is it. Like let's go, lock it in. You know, from very early stages. And I think for me, like I was thinking about that kind of vision of what I wanted, and I was like looking at myself, and I was like, there's a mismatch here, brother. Like this ain't working. You know what I mean? And it caused me a lot of grief. So it really compelled me to, change, be better. And then business, that was something different. So initially, like I'd been with my girlfriend for a little while now at that point, and one of my friends, he really close friend of mine, he kind of came to me with this idea. I was still working construction and just kind of like doing the 9 to 5, making about $1,200 a week, just managing, but kind of like starting to get a little bit more consistency in my life, and still had this huge like, how the fuck are you going to deal with all this debt in my head? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I didn't tell anyone about it. It was this shame, huge shame, where I was like, I don't want to even talk about money. I don't want to even talk about like debt. I don't even like spend money. And I was like, I remember the one time, like we went like out to the nightclub one time, and my now brother-in-law, we went to like the ATM and shit, and I had no money. Like I had like $13 in my account, and like he's like, come, like let's get some cash out so we can get, and I was like, yeah, sweet, I'll come. And I like went to the ATM and I put my card in, and I was like, oh bro, the ATM's not working. So I'm like fully faked it, man. Like it just, and like we laugh about it now. We were driving yesterday, and he's like, remember when you came to the ATM and because he went along with it, and I told him like years after, I'm like, bro, like remember that time? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I had no money. I was literally like faking that whole shit. Fucked up.
Yeah, it's scary to think about, because it's like the whole time your personality, your whole psyche just wants to avoid.
Yeah.
It's like
just running. Yeah.
Avoid. And it's interesting that like you were avoiding for so long, and then you switched and you're like, all right, I'm gonna take ownership for a couple of things.
Yeah.
But I'm mainly gonna take ownership for just like myself right now.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like you just have to start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just have to. It's like who I had this realization when I was in my holiday in Mexico recently. It was like it just kind of came to me when I was in the beach at the beach, and I was sitting there and like beautiful view looking over like the crystal clear water of the Caribbean Sea, and I was like and I was kind of starting to get the itch to like, I want to get back into it. You know what I mean? I was like, let's go. Like I just spent like 2 weeks mapping out my business plan. I've gone through all my reflections. I was really centered and really clear about what I wanted, and just kind of dropped into my head where I was like, a man's at his best when he's in the pursuit of what he wants. And I was just like, I'm like, that's it. And I'm like, that's what I want. And I'm like, I become better when I'm pursuing the things that are truly meant for me, you know? And I think that's what started to happen. And I think that's why, like, you just have to start.
What do you think about this? Right, because in the head I was like thinking of this as sort of like a problem. What about the people who are like, yeah, I want to start. I sort of know what I want to do. And I know these things. And like, I want to do that, but like I'm doing pretty good where I am. And that's like, they would have to take 2 steps back, have some pain in their family, pain like financially, whatever it is, to start doing what they want, right? And then obviously there's like bigger gain at the end of it. But for the people who are like hesitating from doing that, like, have you got any advice?
So as in like, they're doing okay.
They're doing okay, they know what they want, but they're not doing what they want right now.
Got it.
Right? They know what they want, but they're not doing what they want. they're scared to do what they want because that's going to make them take 2 steps back now to focus on doing what they want.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like you either pay now or you pay twice in the future. And I think it's like if you know that is the case and you're avoiding it, like you are going to pay multiple times of whether it's time, energy, money, whatever it might be, put into that thing that you know you should do. So like, I think that's one big thing that I'm really conscious of this year is like the time between the thought that comes into my mind, and I had the one thing that I wrote down which was huge was just like, if you know you're going to do it anyway, do it now.
Yeah.
Because like for me that was it, and I remember last couple of years, and I've observed it so many times over like my life with so many different things, whether it's like anything to do with like business deal, anything to do with like sales contract, anything to do with like hiring or firing, and it's like you know you should do it, and then you delay it because you're like, oh, like maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll improve, maybe I won't need it, maybe I won't need to fire that person, maybe they'll get better, maybe I won't need that extra money for funding, whatever it might be, and then you end up needing it, and you're in a dire straight situation where you need to do it fast and you get hurt. You know what I mean? So the impacts of waiting and delaying something that you know you should be usually are like what I've measured to be about 4 to 5 times worse. Like that's kind of what my observation is like if you can summon the courage to just be like, hey, like just fucking do it.
This is going to be way worse. Well, I think like you would have like a more like understanding of that in your mind because you're like, well, I've been at when it's at its worst, and fuck that.
But the thing is as well is like we as humans, I think we forget how bad things were a lot quicker than we hold on to how good things were, and that's a big thing for me. Like I will always have a heavy kind of like bias of optimism, and I'll always be like, well, this is amazing, well, this could be great, well, this could be good, and it's fantastic because it like opens me up to so many great opportunities and allows me to see different things and expand in different areas and have so much more fun in hard times, but at the same time it also makes me miss a lot of things. You know what I mean? And so like
what, for example?
like people's intentions.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like if you just think the best of everything all the time, like people can take advantage of you, they can manipulate you, they can, you know.
Have you had that happen to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Like in business or?
Yeah, I would say like business predominantly. Yeah, definitely like just over trusting people.
Is this like employees or?
Employees, partners, everything. Like,
whoa.
Yeah, like having just this naive kind of like trust that things are going to be okay, and it's really, really, really challenging because like naivete or like not knowing is really valuable as well. So like for example, I did this event with Jordan Belfort, and I knew nothing at all. Like I literally had myself and a $12 an hour VA in the Philippines, and I had never run an event. I'd never spoken on stage. I never like conducted anything at all at any scale, like zero, nothing. And so I went to his mastermind, we sat down, and he's like, hey, I'd love to, come to Australia. It'll really put you on the map. And he's just pulling on my big ego heartstrings to, make me feel significant and all this status. And I was like, this is going to be it.
How so? What were some things that he was saying to you that when he was just like boosting?
Dude, it's the same things that I would say to someone if I wanted them to just close their eyes and trust me. Like, it's like, oh, son, I see what you're doing. Wow, it's so incredible. I want to take you under my wing. I want to nurture you. I want to mentor you. And I was like, this is a dream come true.
Yeah, literally.
And then on the back end of that, it's like, all right, cool. Like, with no experience and like a 4-month kind of like, time window, you've got to organize 2,500, 3,000 people in 2 different cities, like fill tickets for that. I had an email list of like 300 people. So like I had nothing. I had no assets.
How long ago was this?
Zero. Like this was like 2019, 2020. So not long ago.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah. And so I remember like getting into that. I'm like, how hard can it fucking be? You know what I mean? Like I wrote down a few numbers on the Entrepreneur's best friend, the whiteboard, and I was like, well, that's probably about what it's going to cost. It's probably about like the difficulty of it. Like I'm going to make heaps of money. Optimism bias just like fucking firing, like everything's going to be amazing. I'm going to have a massive career. This is going to boost me into like social status, celebrity status. And then I remember we got into it and we started kind of running marketing and advertising for it because that was the only way I could actually get acquisitions of ticket sales. And I was making no sales. Like no tickets were selling. And I was like, holy fuck. I think I sold like 16 tickets in the first like 2 weeks. And I was like, literally like not sleeping at all, like sharp sense of
I love
like
that
terror
feeling,
in
like,
my
yeah,
fucking chest every
Terror
day.
is a good word for it. You know
It
when
is.
you're freaking out
It
about
is.
business, something is in your chest, and you're like, and you're losing. That terror
It
is the right word.
It's
legitimate
sharp, and
fear.
your whole body is like cold, and you feel that like sense of like clamminess, and you're like, you know, and it's wild, man. And so I remember like I had 4 months to put it together. I started like going frantically speaking to every person that I remotely even knew in the space, because I was like, what do I do? At that point, I think I'd paid Jordan like 150, 180,000 for like the speaking fees and all the rest involved with it. So I'm heavily in it. You know what I mean? And I had booked in some venues and stuff. So
Was that like all your money at the time as well?
No, because I kind of accumulated a fair bit of money from my automotive repair business.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of cash.
Do you still have it?
No, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. And so I had a bit of cash, but it was like most of my money. You know, and I was like, this is a big balls risk. And I remember like speaking to a few people that I eventually got a hold of. Like spoke to some of the people in Success Resources. Like made some connections through different people, and I was like, what should I do? You know, and they're like, oh, you're doing an event with Jordan. Oh, I did one, you know, in the past. Like, I would never do it again. And I was like, oh, what have I done? And then I spoke to another guy. I tried to get in contact with another guy. He ran an event with Jordan many years ago, and I was like emailing him, trying to get in contact, and he goes, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk about it.
No.
And I was like, how fucking bad was this?
No.
So like that sense of dread and terror is like building up, and I'm like, what do I do? And so I like my mindset is just like I'm gonna either like I was just like I'm gonna go through it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, for better or for worse. So far in my life, for the better. I'm a really bad quitter, and I think it's, to be honest, there's a big part of my, whether it's like European like heritage that's like thick Russian skull that goes, fuck you, we're gonna keep pushing until I get it. I think so. Which can come with, you know, additional downside and damages, you know what I mean, and too much kind of like I need to know when the loss aversion is enough, and I'm like, cut it. Anyway, with this, I kind of had that mindset. I'm like, I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to do it. I'm committed. I paid this guy whatever it is, 180 grand. I'm not going to pull back on it. And so we pushed the dates of the event back. I had this one guy that I kind of like got in contact with, Greg, his name was, and I was like, what do you think I should do? And he's like, how long have you got? How much money you got? And he asked me like 15 questions in the space of about like 2 minutes, and then he just hung up on me. And he's like, I'll call you. And I was like, what do you mean? And so like that for me is an example of like naivete. Like every person I spoke to was like, never do it. Every person that was like directly advising me through the process was like, you're absolutely out of your mind. And even like until the point where we came probably like 2 or 3 weeks out from the actual like a happening of the event, I was like, I'm about to wrap this thing up and pull the plug. Like it was nuts. But like I remember getting there and standing there and like being part of that event, and then even Jordan coming to the event and being like, he's like, dude, I've been to thousands of events, and he's like, this is one of the best put together events I've ever seen. And I was like, wow. You know what I mean? And I remember like having my little email VA, speaking to all these people and being like, we will get back to you. I'm like, bro, it's just like you and me. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make this like perception of this big company that's like facilitating this event. It was literally like me in my bedroom with my laptop, my VA, and we filled, you know, I think it was like 1,000, 1,100 tickets in like Melbourne. With like 180 grand of Facebook ad spend.
Oh, okay, you spent a shitload of ads, yeah.
Okay. Some promoters and people, different affiliates that I kind of like recruited in different areas that were selling tickets for me.
Recruiters and affiliate, good job.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And just like
that would be a new skill, right?
Oh yeah. All of it was a new skill. Like I literally went from like being in that kind of automotive repair industry, which is like nothing digital, everything's face to face, everything's like flying around repairing cars, to standing in front of, you know, 1,000 people and then 1,300 people like back to back on 19th and 20th of February with no experience at all, nothing at all, like zero. And so like I don't think, like knowing what I know now, like I would never do that. And that's like that piece of like naivete where it's like sometimes having, and I think that's why a lot of companies these days disrupt bigger companies, because they see something that they don't see and they don't know like what the way is that it's supposed to be. So they're like, oh, we'll just come in and do that. And the big company's like, well, you can't do that because we've been doing this for 25 years. So I don't know, it can serve you, but can be pretty damaging. So yeah, interesting.
So yeah, now you've got the knowledge to run like and sell out any event.
Not any event, but yeah.
Most events.
Most events.
I think you do when you go. Well, that's really cool. What would you say then in regards to like, so like obviously time there was a lot of naiveness happening then. How do you counteract that now? Is it just like the risk management plans that you were talking about? Like you just like map out all your risk? Like how do you instead of, because I think like when I look at that, I'm like, well, that really sharpened your sword. Like Jordan saw this like sort of potential in you, and he's just like, I'm just going to dump all of it on fucking Sash and see how he like responds really, sort of what it's like. And then you rose up to the challenge and fucking met it, even though it just ripped your hair out during the process. And it's like, okay, well now that you know that skill, like if you were to do that again, what are like the tools?
Well, so I will, because I know myself in terms of my over-optimistic kind of bias towards all the good things that can happen, I will intentionally, constantly look at like all the bad things.
Oh yeah.
And I will just be like
what? How do you go through? Because I'm optimistic as well. I'm sure a lot of people might be listening to this optimistic. How do you go through and like look at all the shit things? You just write down like a shit list.
It's honestly just like because like human beings have like a much stronger kind of negativity bias. Like they are better at kind of predicting what can go wrong as opposed to like what could go right. You know what I mean? Like by the way we're wired in terms of survival, it's like that's a threat, that could go bad. Whereas like what could go right is like how are you supposed to project that or predict that? You know what I mean? It's like it's just like, well, it kind of makes sense and it could happen. Cross my fingers, hopefully it does. And so like doing things like just really deeply analyzing downsides or looking at like, okay, here's the deal. What are all the ways this could completely fucking derail me and fuck me out of every single dollar I put into it? And I'll sit there and just like obsess on it to the point where I'm like, that's really fucking bad. You know what I mean?
I like your voice when you said, dude, that's really fucking
yeah, I know, but like, and then theory of constraints, like Ellie says, when the worst possible cost is still greater than the when the greatest possible cost, as in how much your predicted cost is, whether it's time, energy, resources, money, whatever it is. So it's like if you think it's going to cost you $100,000 and you extrapolate that, you're like, man, well, if everything went horribly wrong, it might cost me $500,000. When that cost is still less than the worst possible benefit, then it's a no-brainer.
I like that. That's
really good. It's very simple to kind of get your head around, but it's quite challenging. So I would just say to offset the naivete for me, I just spend a lot more time like obsessing over my demons and obsessing over things that are like potentially going to go wrong. And it just helps me because what does Joe DiMartini says, your voids create your values. And I think some of the lessons that I've learned going through these things is like I don't want to, and it's really challenging because I think like sometimes it can lead you into like a fear-based state of operating in lack when you're constantly running from something that you don't like. You know what I mean? If you're constantly like, oh, I don't want to go broke again. I'm always going to be running from that, and it can kind of put you in a very like not a positive energy, abundant kind of state, you know. But I think forgetting some of those issues and things that you've kind of been through in the past is also like dumb as well. I think a lot of people do, and I've noticed myself kind of like, I've noticed I have done that in some areas in the past, and like so now I intentionally put myself in situations where I'm like, let's think about all the things that went bad.
I like that. It's real to me. It sort of seems really like yin and yang. So it's like, because it's like, well, you are most of the time optimistic. So it's like you're actually spending really time to like look at stuff. Yeah. So when things do happen and they happen in the way you want, it's like you really get to celebrate them.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like the phrase that I have in, especially with business, is like, I don't want surprises. But you know what I mean? Like think about a surprise in business that's actually good.
Yeah.
Usually they're not.
And I always think as well is like business is really educated gambling. You're putting every single thing like in order as best as possible, so it's like 99% chance you got to get it. So
but the difference I think in terms of business versus gambling is the odds increasingly get more and more in your favor.
Yeah.
If you learn. So rather than like gambling being a flat line, as in like it's constantly this odds against the house, or business continues to increase where you are a very fucking good gambler.
Well, you make really good decisions. You basically, as you said, set it up in such a way where it's like, well, of course this is going to happen, and the result I'm either going to get is like in here. It's going to be like what I expected, over what I expected, or under what I expected. Under what I expected, let's go back. Over what I expected, let's go back so we can do it again, because whatever that's happening.
Exactly.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good way to think about it.
I also want to talk about, let's call it sort of like your mindset around like money as an entrepreneur, and like your like mindset as an entrepreneur for how you attack things and make decisions, because I think it's really important to have a certain mindset or like guides or frameworks that you use with your everyday, with everything else that like you know you do. And I know you've like had so many mentors that have like taught you heaps of crazy stuff. So like I want to talk a little bit about that. So I don't know if you want to like break that down or just like something that's real passionate that you've just been like using recently. You think's been working.
So specifically towards money, or just in general business decision making?
I would say either, whatever feels like most comfortable for you. Something around like money mindset or like entrepreneur mindset. Either or, because they go like hand in hand. Yeah,
definitely. So where to start here? I think probably like starting with like, I guess like an entrepreneur, when you first start, like you have no idea or concept of the value that you can bring or provide, and so naturally I think you'll have like a like you won't value yourself enough, and you'll have that imposter syndrome like heavy on, which will lead you to kind of like overcompensate or kind of like undercharge or think wrongly about money and put yourself in a mindset that might not serve you.
Did that last for you? Like, as maybe we were mentioning last time, and you were like, sort of the imposter syndrome only stopped like not even that long.
Yeah, I would say about 12 months ago, I've noticed it like shut the fuck up. Yeah.
How so? Because I'm really interested like in people who are entrepreneurs who are doing like quite well, and they're still like in imposter syndrome. Like, fuck, I feel like a phony. I feel like a goddamn like fraud right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a big thing. That was a big thing for a long time for me, and I think what I would say would for me, just like reflecting on myself, I think it was like I was, and I think like, so if you do like a lot really fucking quick, I think your business growth can exceed your identity, essentially. Like your business, and this is the same thing in terms of, like I see it with the people in my team, for example. It's like when my company grows really quickly, it's like the skill sets and the knowledges and the role that you have are no longer that useful, because I'm like, you're thinking like a business at this scale, but we need you over here. You know what I'm saying? And I think like that happens often, you know what I mean? When people go through these rapid shifts and they go through these rapid kind of like transformations on a business level, they're like, oh my God, I'm making all this money, and they don't feel deserving of it. And they're like, I need to get rid of it, I need to fuck it off, or I need to find a way to like stop doing it.
Did you go through that?
I don't think I went through it specifically. I think I definitely struggle with it, but I think I just dealt with it in the sense of just overcompensating with a big ego and being like,
just describe to me your ego.
So just like because I think a lot of people in my team and a lot of people around that kind of know me would say that, you know, I'm kind of pretty direct, pretty forward, pretty kind of like sometimes forceful.
Pretty direct, or you are?
Yeah. and like so that's great and all, but it also can like leave you in a position where you have a lot of blind spots, because if you're super direct and like over the top and people feel like they can't come to you with like the truth, then you're going to be left with a lot of things that you don't know. And so I think I notice this a lot with like people when they're in a learning situation and they have the wrong mindset towards like how to absorb information. They will overcompensate by being like really defensive, really direct, really forward, and like protective of their position. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want people to figure out that I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm going to talk really loudly. I'm going to carry on like really in a massive state of ego, so people just assume that I know what I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I think I kind of compensated for me not knowing very much with that. Okay, so big like loud fucking voice, big loud fucking booming directions, like a whole lot of like charisma and like ego that just like was like permeating everywhere. But it's like, I don't really actually know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I kind of observed it, and that's how I kind of I guess like navigated myself. And then I think I had to, which I think really helped, completely retracting off all socials and just being like, how about you just focus on you and stop worrying about anyone else at all. That was a big thing for me, where I was like, I'm not going to spend time on that shit. I'm not going to like worry about posting or sharing or doing anything. And like, it just puts you in a position where it's like you're needing to keep up with these external appearances, which is like, bro, it doesn't serve you. And I think that was really quite helpful for me to be able to like actually sit back and like reflect on myself and learn the things that I knew that I needed to bridge the gap and then be ahead of the gap in terms of like not having that imposter syndrome, being like, hey, like, this is what I am, this is what I've done, this is what I know, this is what I don't know.
Just come back down to like owning yourself really, and like accepting that. So it sort of feel like your ego, sort of like you were manipulating yourself.
Yeah. Which
is really interesting, and then always when you're manipulating yourself, it's got to show up and like, you're going to manipulate others in some way whatsoever, like real slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting like for you, like sort of understanding and like owning those things about yourself would have been like, I'm assuming would have been one of the factors that was like, okay, let's go from like 100K months to over 1 million K months, as well as balancing like my relationship and this whole team.
Yeah. But I think one thing I've learned as well is that the more you focus on like the should do's or like the quote unquote balance based on someone else's perspective, like the more you'll live in an identity that isn't yours. So my mum, for example, any one of my family, they always just put their kind of opinions and statements on me of you should do this, or I don't see this of you, I don't do like. And if I want to kind of borrow that and live in that, like it doesn't serve me at all. It slows me down, puts me in guilt, puts me in shame, puts me in like all of these fucked up emotions because I'm like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I do work too much. But I'm like, why would I borrow your identity of what you want me to be based on you? I'm like, that's just so busted up.
Dude, what else is there? What other thing to that? 'Cause I feel like sometimes like from what you're saying here is like some of the limiting beliefs that we have on ourselves aren't actually our own.
I think most of them aren't.
Yeah, they're others, and then
I think like,
because of identity, we fight for them.
We 100%. Most things I think, and I think Dan Sullivan's book, is it Who Not Now? Gap. I think it was The Gap in the Game, but I think he talks about it really, really eloquently in that, and he goes, people need to become more and more and more okay with wanting what they want. And it's like, I don't fucking care. I don't care what you think. I want what I want. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to tell you a big charitable story about all the Indians and Africans I'm going to help. It's like, I just want that. And I'm completely cool for you to think whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that is such a freeing and empowering position to stand in. And I think a lot of people need to adopt something of that sort for themselves and be like, what do I actually want? You know what I mean? Me personally, myself, and not someone else, and not like what I should do or what I should. And I think like for me, like I've been really, really a lot more ruthless with myself and people around me where I'm like, if I catch myself saying things like I should, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't want it. I'm not doing it.
Have you got a story?
I mean, like even like I would say like, you know, a couple of years ago I would be really, really, really bad in like a people pleaser yes man situation.
Have you got an example?
Like people in my team like would kind of ask me for whether it's like can we do this certain thing, can I have a pay rise, can I have more commit, all these things, and I would have like, again, if we trace it back, it goes to I didn't know enough about what I was doing, so I'd overcompensate and play a big ego card. Underneath, I had massive like scarcity and lack of like I really don't know what I'm talking about, right? And I had this kind of perception that people would figure that out, so I need to keep them happy, otherwise I'll leave, right? And so then I would say yes to a lot of things to keep people happy, so they wouldn't leave. And so like people being like, you know, can I get a pay rise, or I'm going to leave, and I'd be like, oh, like don't leave, or here's a pay rise, or like commissions, I've got more commissions, well, you're really good, here's this, or I don't want you to leave, and I think like, just saying yes to so many things, it puts you in a position where it's like, you don't stand for anything, because you're just giving your power away to everything and anything. And I think for me it was just like massive ownership for myself, like this is all your fault, motherfucker, first things first, and then being like, what do you actually need to I think one thing that I turned around really well, which was quite interesting, was like the relationship between fear and just realizing that fear is just a symbol that I'm not aware, or I need to learn something. And the quicker that I did that, where I was like fear or something, or wanting to bury my head in the sand, wanting to avoid something, and turn that into the energy of like, what's the information here that you don't know that could actually be really quite exciting, you know, for you to learn about. I think the biggest thing was probably just like finances in general. Like when I didn't know what I know now about it, like I would just avoid it, and I just trust whether it was my accountant, trust my bookkeeper, trust my account manager, whoever it might be, or finance manager, to tell me the things that were right or wrong, because I was like, well, hopefully that's right. And I had this fear of like, I don't even know if any of that's right, but rather than actually facing it and diving into it, I'll just avoid it, you know, and then you just let it kind of fester and brew, and it gets bigger and badder and compounds, and it just gets nasty.
So what do you think for you then were the things in terms of, because I really like this mindset of being in a position where it's like, well, I don't know, so I'm sort of faking it, which was like imposter syndrome. How did you get to know, and what do you think those like key areas were for you to like really dive deep on?
So yeah, that's a really, really deep, big question. So like if I was to retrace and look at what I did, I just did a whole crap load of like random activities and actions in a whole bunch of different directions. And one thing I didn't do enough, which I think, to be honest, most people just need to do. Like if you just move into action, even if it's in the wrong direction, you're still going to learn something. So you start getting feedback and you start kind of like improving that feedback loop of like, oh, well, like, okay, that didn't work, but I kind of like that feeling of like doing something. So maybe try something different, you know what I mean? So I think that's probably the most important thing. And I'd say just like moving into action is most important. The thing that I didn't do enough that I'm doing a lot more of now is being really aware of like what my downsides are and my natural dispositions towards like this optimism bias, or like these certain areas where I feel like I'm not as proficient in those skills that I want to be. And so I know that it's going to be a hazard or an issue if I don't either find someone to plug that hole or learn about that myself. So I think that was really, really big myself, like going through that and learning like, okay, so I'm really good at this, I'm really bad at that. I'm either going to learn it or I'm going to find a who to plug that hole, so I don't need to be so concerned about it.
What were you good and bad at?
So I feel like I've always been very, very good at inspiring other people and kind of like leading other people and sharing my kind of like vision in a way that has people want to follow. Awesome at it. Influencing people, selling, any form of like sales-based situation, I feel like I'm very, very, very good at.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I mean,
Sorry, right now, baby. Put it on the camera.
So, I mean, like, I think even like thinking about the whole thing with Jordan Belfort, this is the first thing that came to mind. Like, I did those events and I put them together and I wanted to commercialize the events. And I had never, like I said, spoken on stage before, sold on stage before. And so I went from like complete zero skill set to standing in front of a room of 1,000 and 1,300 people and like hardcore selling from stage. Like, get to the back of the room and commanding people to the back of the room and did it with like the most, I remember like going through that close and just it was the most confident I felt through the entire presentation, which is like converse to what most people would be, where it was like as soon as you start to ask people for money, most people are like I clam up. But for me, I was like on stage and I had 1,000+ eyeballs on me. And I was like, stand up and get to the back of the room. And so like, I think that naturally comes to me quite well in terms of being able to like understand and influence and help to persuade people to do things that I believe are best for them. And then opposite to that, some of the things that I didn't know and understand were just like, I'd say business economics, like financial economics and some of those areas which were just deficiencies. And I just buried my head in the sand for a long time about them.
You just started reading on them, learning on them, coaches, or like...
Yeah, and I think again similar to the fact of I guess what happened with my previous girlfriend, there was enough pain in my life and situation where I was like, okay, so you either keep I guess letting these things be deficiencies and bury your head in the sand, and you'll probably be not in business anymore, or you learn. You know what I mean? And you actually like look at them very closely and just fucking start. You know what I mean? It's like I think the cool thing is that most people need to develop is like. That I believe has been a big part of what's actually put me in a position where I feel more confident constantly now is I have so much evidence, and if I look back on, if I'm ever in a situation or a state where I'm like really, really like beaten up and struggling and feeling like upset about who I am or I'm like really confronted by a particular challenge or obstacle, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. Like I'll just like pause for a minute, I'll go into the bathroom, I'll look at myself in the mirror and be like, all right, let's just like flick through the slides of the things that you've done. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, so that, yeah, that, and I'm like that as well, and that. I'm like, and I'm getting chills right now. I'm like, get the fuck up, dude, and just, what, are you serious? You doubting yourself, pussy? Get the fuck back in there. Let's roll.
It's crazy, as you mentioned. One thing I learned recently is like what you've done, and if you think about like something that you've done and it's like something bad, it's like that's what you feel guilt about. That thing that you've done. However, what's really common in the Western world is the things that we've done influence who we think we are. And if we think that we're someone bad, we just get like filled with shame.
Yeah.
And it's like to get rid of that shame and owning it is really finding those key points. Like one of evidence and understanding that's like, it's not actually an identity thing. We've just made it an identity thing, even though it's not, because we've had evidence from somewhere else that has made us, like from somewhere in our past that has made us think that it's us, and not actually the things that we've done, we build up against. So.
And it's a perception thing as well. You know what I mean? It's how you've internalized that belief at that time. I did this personal development workshop, and it was actually really, really quite empowering. And so I think a lot of the reason that I pursue a lot of things in my life is because I have the belief that I didn't get a lot of love or approval from my dad, right? And so I remember I was doing this, like, I was thinking 2 days or 3 days. It's called Flip the Script. And you kind of work through all these layers of like finding particular defining moments that created beliefs in your life, and then you can kind of like rewrite those beliefs. And so I remember going through this event and then highlighting a couple of key areas where I really felt like no love and no recognition from my dad. Like, we're driving back, my dad was like the ice hockey coach of my ice hockey team. We're driving back from a big game that we had together, and I like busted my heart all on the ice the whole entire game. And then we're driving home and my dad's just like sitting there in the car and just like talking about one of these other people on the team the whole time. He's like, oh, did you see Craig? Oh, how he skated. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what about me? The whole time. And so like during that whole like process, and for me that was like, and it still is, I think I probably haven't healed it enough, but it's still, like, please, please, can you call me?
Tell me how skating goes.
But like during that event, I kind of outlined that, highlighted that, really isolated and identified this was a really key thing. You know what I mean? That created a big identity in me where I was like, I need to get the love and approval of my dad. And I'm going to chase, I'm going to do whatever I need to, I'm going to be as successful as I can, I'm going to do all of the things that like theoretically in my mind should make someone love me, you know? And then during that same presentation, that same workshop, we went through the converse of like why that actually happened, and then how what my dad did was actually serving and protecting me. And so like this is how I internalized it, because my dad had really my dad never actually saw very much of his dad because he was away in the war all the time. He had a really close connection with his mum, loving connection with his mum. And so the way that I kind of like saw this is by him being really hard on me and being very like rough and not giving me any love. What it did is it actually went and had me seek the attention and love of my mum, which brought us extremely close together, and I have an amazing relationship with my mum. So by him being like, well, I never got to, love my dad and have a great connection with my dad, I'm going to put all this pressure on you. You're going to go and have an incredible connection with your mum. Yeah, that's how I internalized it. And it's just rewriting this whole kind of thing. So he was able to kind of gift me this relationship with my mum that he maybe internalized was the right thing. And I think the thing is, like, it doesn't even matter if that's true or not. Like, whether that is even true or that's even what happened, I'm like, if that benefits me, it's like success. You know what I mean? I think, in terms of beliefs, I think it's too many people are caught up on their own beliefs, thinking things that don't serve them and believing them for way too fucking long.
Which aren't actually their own beliefs.
Yeah. No, not at all.
It's not an original belief of like one that you choose. And I feel like we know, like we have a deep knowing in terms of like what the decisions are and what our beliefs are. Yeah. And it isn't until like something happens, so like a switch goes on in the light, the room brightens up, and you're like, look at all this shit that I've seen that I thought was there. What?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. But I feel like decision making overall, like it's something you don't learn. You know what I mean? Like, no one really teaches you how to make decisions, and like if you look at your life at the moment, it comes down to essentially the quality of your decisions. And the state you're in when you're making those decisions. And it's like, if you want to continue perpetuating the same situation, the same feelings, like put yourself in that same state, make the same decisions, and it's like keep experiencing the same crap. Yeah.
What do you love learning at the moment? What do you love like learning, researching? What do you like love learning and researching the best?
I think at the moment I'm really fired up and obsessed about learning how to incentivize and create kind of like structures that within my company that will support like leadership development and leadership growth, and allow people to, because I think at the moment in the market as a whole, like there's a lot of people who are like leaving their jobs and they've got the side hustles and they've got all these different things they're doing, and there's that whole great resignation. People don't want to work as hard, people don't feel inspired, they're kind of like seeing all these ways to make money and they're not really wanting to quote unquote like work for somebody, so I think that's a big focus for me at the moment. I really love the idea of having a committed and attention-driven organization on one thing. So that's something that I'm super excited about, and I love the idea of creating a culture where it's like everyone's focus is my focus. So it's so valuable, and I've observed it so many times. It's like when your attention's fractured or on multiple things, they all just suffer. And that's something I'm loving a lot at the moment. The second thing I would say would be,
see, just on that one, I was mentioning, this is really cool. I was learning from like a mentor of mine. He's like, you want to create like your company and the job so good that the people who are in there would die to keep it.
Yeah.
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 Like, so if anything happens and it's like that threatens their way of life, it threatens this, like, love that they have for the community of like your company, like you want them to like die
stand for it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like anything, I'll go my best because I love this way too much. And I like that sort of like made a switch for me. I was like, oh, how do I create that? So I'm sick you're learning that. It inspires me because I'm like nowhere near like at all. So how do we get that done? So
that's good.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think that, and then I would say that the second thing, which I don't see many people talk about, or I don't see many people really focus too much on. I think a lot of people focus on, you know, how much money you're making and how much growth you're having and your kind of like top line or how much profit you make, all that stuff. But like, not that many talk about, you know, the specifics of like the product that you're selling, the service you're offering, the deliverables, like how things work, how to improve that, how to make that better, like how to have like an insanely valuable kind of like asset as far as like what you provide as service or product. And so that's something that I'm really enjoying at the moment, and just going through like product development, going through service development, like being at the forefront of what I do and being able to provide like some of the best of the best of the best to my community or to people that kind of come into my organization. That's just lighting me up because I guess like an outstandingly great product needs to be marketed a lot less than, you know, something that's average, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that I'm super excited about.
Pioneering to make something so good.
Yeah, pioneering, like being the one that people copy as opposed to being the copier. I think if you find yourself like looking at what other people are doing in the market and like copying them, it's like you're always like going to be second.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a big thing where I'm just like, I want to be first and I want to lead and I want to be the best. I want to create something that people look at, like that is the benchmark standard.
Yeah. That's cool because you've gone through all the initiations. Like you have to go through the initiation, you learn all things, do the stuff, catch up to a certain level. Then there's one point where it's like, let's branch out.
Yeah.
And let's go. So that's sick that you got that.
And I think it's, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Like I don't know if everyone learns that, because like a lot of people go through and they make the same mistakes over and over again. You know what I mean? Like they might have an issue with their cash flow and they might not learn finances.
Do you think that like personal development helped you do that? Or just experiences? Because I know you like really like you love educating yourself.
Massively, yeah. I've done a lot in terms of like spiritual development, personal development, like a lot. But it's interesting because with all that stuff, it's so like when I was going through a lot of, and I have gone through a lot of like really intense business challenges and like issues. Like I would like sit there and I'd, you know, meditate for fucking 2 hours a day to bring myself into a state of like calm, right? But then I'd jump right back into my environment, and within like 60 seconds I'm like you know what I mean? So I'm like,
I'm so present, I'm so calm. Oh god damn it!
You wake up and you're like, I'm so calm. Open your eyes and you're like, there's that fucking heart pounding terror, literally, you know. So it definitely helps, and I think it helps you to kind of like navigate the emotional regulation part. But I think you just have to fucking do the right thing. And you have to do the work. And one of the biggest things that slapped me in the face was like, Alex Hormozy said it, he's like, if you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you're not growing, you're doing the wrong things. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's that fucking simple. You know, like, and that's why I've like really heavily pivoted to like, stop and look at what you're doing. You know what I mean? Because like, that's the downside to like what I said earlier in terms of if you're in that position, just start and take action and bury yourself and commit to action. But I think in reflection, if I would have done that until the point I was making like a couple of $1 million a year, and then I would have like periodic breaks, maybe every quarter, and like zoom out completely and detach and have like maybe a week to 10 days of like no contact, nothing, like literally don't speak to anyone and just reflect on what I learned, I probably would have progressed a lot faster.
Ooh.
As opposed to just like, just keep going. You know, because he's like, you need to see what's the book I read recently? In The Goal, he talks. I think it is In The Goal. He talks about, he's like, as a leader, you need to be the one climbing up the tree and looking ahead of where your team of people are below you to make sure the direction you guys are going is the right direction. You know what I mean? If you're down there in the forest with them, cutting down trees and cutting the path, who knows which way you're gonna fucking end up. You know, so I think it is really important to have that time. And I mean, this is very rich coming from me because until probably 12, maybe 18 months ago, I was like, just put the pedal to the metal and fucking go, you know? But I think when you start, that's what you need to do. I do think when you start, you need to build a relationship with yourself. You need to push the threshold of like, I'm reached burnout and all that bullshit that people tell themselves, like that balance, and I just want balance. I'm like, motherfucker, you don't need balance, man. You need to get some skill set. You need to get some money. That's what you need. Like, and then when you get that, then you kind of need to actually zoom out a little bit and have a break. That's what I think at the moment. Probably will change in the future, but at the moment, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
No, I like that. It's like learn enough skills, understand where you're going enough, get to the point where it's like prove yourself that you've done some like milestones,
and find who's to do the things. That's the thing, because like once, like when it's just you need to do everything. Therefore, you are responsible for all the skills and the delivery of those skills. And so once you get to a certain level, you're like, okay, I'm pretty good. Let's get some leverage. You know what I mean? I don't want to do everything my fucking self. Get some who's, separate yourself a little bit, then you can have that time and space. So that's probably the hardest transition. Yeah.
I can't stress enough how powerful that is. It was interesting when we were like just chatting the other day, and you're like, yeah, I'm just really focusing on the who's, not the house, and immediately it had to click in my brain. I was like, oh god damn, because we just had someone like hired a VA for a very specific task that we hadn't done for like a year, which was very inexpensive, and we needed to do it. I was like, about a year ago, I was like, we should really get someone doing that. And it's like, wasn't until 12 months later where we did it, and then it happened, and we were like, hours. We have just saved like hours. I've got a year calculator thing that I created in terms of like hours. It would have been 3 to 4 hours a day, which turns out until if you live to the age of like 95, it's like 8 to 11 years.
But it's not even that. Like, what did that cost you?
So much, dude.
Like and not even just like the actual hourly rate cost of you doing that, but what that could have actually produced you in actual net revenue by you doing the right things. Like
in terms of leads coming in,
wild,
crazy amount,
wild,
a crazy amount in terms of leads coming in terms of like different content, all this stuff. Because it was like helping my content director do all this stuff, like helping him like do his other things. I was like, that has just like if I had to map out the cost, it'd be something stupid. Yeah. And I was like. So when you said that and it clicked, because we had it, I was just like had a moment. I was like,
yeah,
just had to feel that again. Yeah. In terms of the who's, not the hows. Like,
but it's exactly so what you just said there. That for me is like those rules that I wrote down, which is like if you're gonna do it now. If you're gonna do it anyway, do it now.
Have you got anywhere? You got these rules?
I wrote them all down. Yeah, some of them are very personal, so I won't share all of them. I can share some of them.
Is there a few? Because I want to know. Is there a few that we can put in the description?
We can. Like,
just a couple.
There's probably a vast majority. I'll filter some out, but there's a lot in there. And then second to that, so you're similar to me. You go. All right, so I probably should do this. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying things. I'm just optimistic about how things will work out. You knowing and understanding that now and seeing the pain of that, like every time, I don't know, however frequent you do it, like however frequent you need a bit of a fucking beat up. All right, man, how did it feel to lose that money? All right, how did it feel to spend 12 months doing loser activities that I should have hired for?
Getting triggered.
All right, what am I going to do now? Let's plan the whole year out. Let's look at all the contingencies. Look at all the weaknesses. Look at all the failures. Let's organise that shit so I don't have no surprises. Like,
I'm triggered. I'm triggered. Zach. I'm triggered.
I'm going to go actually
because there's so much
box after this as well.
I'm going to go home. I need to see the whiteboard. I'm just fucking just write down all the negative shit. I'm like, oh my god, there's definitely so many pains you think you feel like.
But dude, it's like that in everything, and you're emotionally adept enough to say that, which I think is fucking brilliant. And I think this is where the personal development comes in. So my wife and I have an epic relationship like this, where just what I said to you and us having this conversation, you being like, I'm fucking triggered, right? So like, my wife and I will have conversations, and like there'll be a lot of tension around something. Say for example, it's like me working too much, or me prioritizing something over her, and there'll be a part of me that'll be like. Vehemently wanting to protect my position and being like, fuck you don't understand what I'm doing. It is actually very fucking important, like everything that I do, right? And then like she'll sit there and she will like give specific granular details of like how like, no, you're actually just getting triggered right now because you know what I'm saying is right, and you know that you should actually spend time with me. And in that moment, like I'm in there and I'm like, I can feel like these two brains, like one in my head's just going like, don't you dare fucking try and like say that to me. And I want to just like bark at her and just like go nuts, right? And then there's the other part of me that's actually like, what she's saying is true.
Soften up.
Completely true.
Yeah.
Completely. And it's like in every one of those moments, this is the personal development side where it's like, you can choose. And you can be like, which one of those things is actually going to create the better result in this situation? And it's the compassionate, all right, you are absolutely right. I haven't been actually spending much time with you.
Yeah, like it comes up to me, so I'm getting triggered to say that because I'm like, yeah, I got to do that all the time. And then you finally have to be like, soften your whole body, not get tense, and be like, yeah, like you're right. And then
but talking about it is even like you can talk about it and you can be like, yeah, but like if you're in it and you like it's like every part of your body wants to fight. You know what I mean? And to do the opposite of what you're actually like feeling is like insanely hard.
Yeah,
I think that's probably one of the most valuable things, and I think in relationships definitely, but I think just in life, you know what I mean? And I think having that little bit of space of being able to be like, all right, what's actually the best for me in this situation?
I feel you so much on that. It was like Chloe and I, we got into like some argument when we were in Japan, and I remember like she was like kept talking about something, and I was like defending. I was like no, and I was like fighting it because like rationally and logically I can make up the reasons, and I was just looking at things from like one perspective, and I'm like I can't see it, and then she like she said something that come from another angle and a different perspective, and it just like clicked, and I was just like, oh no, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Like I take complete ownership. I take total responsibility. That's that thing that I've been doing. I'm sorry, I'll change.
Yeah.
She was like more offended. She's
Yeah.
like, you've been doing this for months. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
What do you mean?
I was like,
you knew about this?
yeah, I was like, yeah. We put it in a way that I understand now. Like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But I think the hard thing about that is I believe that it's also in a relationship specifically, like I think the feminine energy will always try and challenge the masculine energy.
Yeah, lift you up, bro.
And so if you like acquiesce and like be like, oh no, you're right. Or it also develops a distrust in the relationship. So I think there are those things that you need to fight for, and you need to stand your ground, and you need to be like, bitch, please, don't cross the fucking line. No, you know what I mean? Like, don't come up on my shit here. This is
yeah, I feel you.
Plant the flag and be like, I ain't fucking going anywhere.
It's like, I call that the sacred no. When other times, like, straight in the eyes. No.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Like,
yeah, very true. I love that.
Like, you sacred no, because they need, like, you know, like those no's and no's to be like, oh, okay, because it was a test.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That one was a test, and he knowed me on the test. Okay, I can trust him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Like, yeah, come on.
Oh, it's so true. It's funny because like you almost, I feel like men don't think like that. Like we don't test or we don't play games or we don't kind of like create certain scenarios to kind of like get feedback and judgment. It's just like we just are what we are, and we're like, I'm going to continue doing this. So linear.
Work like a wolf pack. We're 100% loyalty.
Yeah.
If we're in, we're in. We're 100%. We're like,
exactly.
I'm loyal to the end. Like when you make that full decision, you're like, I'm honest. I'm loyal to the end. We don't need any of this other stuff. I don't need to test you for your trust and safety. I'm fucking safe.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
But like women, they don't feel safe at all most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah, Tony Robbins. Have you been to Tony Robbins' event?
I have, yeah.
You remember the time where he goes, he's like, oh, like women who's felt unsafe in the past week, and
Exactly.
every girl's like, boom, puts their hands up, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys don't feel safe, and we feel safe all the time. So like, it makes complete sense.
It does, it does. What you said there, I think, is something else. Just to digress, is commitment and all in. I think that is something that's required right now. I think you have an all in kind of energy to what you do. I feel like everything you do is like done with absolute passion.
Thank you for knowing that, bro. I feel seen saying that. I'm like, that makes me feel really good.
Yeah, well, I see how you get around. You're just like full. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm fucking all here.
Yeah.
Which is epic. And I think a lot of it's maybe it's missing, or maybe it's like too many people are in too many places all at once. You know what I mean? They're on their phones, they're in their head, they're fucking thinking about the future and the past at the same time, and it leaves you empty. You know, so it's that all in kind of energy, that commitment, that like, I'm here. This is all I am. Let's fucking roll.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very powerful. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of like creates so much in your life when you can do that, because you get so much more out of life when you give all to what you've got in front of you. It's a big, big, big thing. Yeah. Substance. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was probably maybe 2 years ago. I was kind of like doing okay at the time, like business-wise was okay. It was kind of like not growing where I wanted it to. I couldn't quite understand it, and I was kind of like pushing every single month to try and kind of do more of the same. Didn't really change the approach, just doing more of the same. And I had this like one friend of mine, and he was like, oh, like I'd love it if you could come and like, you know, train my sales team, and you could just do like 2 to 3 calls a week with them, and you probably make like, I don't know, maybe an extra 15 grand a month just for like a couple of calls a week. Right, and this was like during a time when my business was like, it was okay, but it wasn't that good, and I was just like a bit frustrated. So it was like an easy distraction, right? What is lady in the red dress or shiny object, right? You're looking at the scene, and you're like, oh, that could be easy, and that could, you maybe just quickly make some money, fun, easy, put that money here, and you quickly, with that optimistic kind of mindset, you run the scenario, makes sense. So I started kind of doing it for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and going back to the commitment and all in piece, it was like the not just the fact of what those 2 to 3 hours a day was doing, but it was like the flow on effect of before those calls, what I was thinking about, after those calls, what I was thinking about, and then the damaging effect that had to every other area of my business. I was just like, I've got to cut this, otherwise I'm going to drown.
I feel that.
You know what I mean? And I think one of my clients said it best a few years ago, and he was like, when I was looking for business opportunities in the e-commerce space, he was like, I had this mindset where I was like, I'm going to invest, I think 10 to 15 grand, 3 times a year in multiple different vehicles and programs until I find the one. And I was like, interesting. And then his business at the time, I think was doing maybe 20 or 30 grand a month. And he was like, when I invested into this, I was like, this is the one. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm not doing anything else. And within a month and a half, 2, he was immediately making sales, immediately crushing it, because it's all of your attention goes into that one thing. So yeah, big respect in my corner from commitment and having that kind of all in kind of mindset. I think it's crucial. Yeah,
that is sick. Well, for everyone who's listening, I'd like to give them a challenge that they can do today, this week, and just from listening to this, they can take action on.
How hard of a challenge?
Whatever. Let's go hard. Be fucking savage.
What's the benefit? What's the benefit that they hope to get from the challenge?
Well, it's something that that makes sense from the podcast that we've been talking about. So something that they've probably been listening, thinking. They're it relates to the podcast.
Okay.
And you'd be like, okay, here's a challenge in regards to what we've talked about in the podcast.
Right. So this probably would be one of the things that I would say will create the biggest net benefit. And so I'll put a bit of context around this, and I'll give the specific thing. So I, for years and years and years, probably 5, 6, 7 years, have been a religious advocate of my morning routine, where I'd wake up in the morning, I'd do my 30 to 45 minute meditation, I'd go to the gym and train, I'd integrate some breath work in there as well, and then I'd kind of plan and organize my day. So I'd have this kind of 2 to maybe 2.5 hours at least, probably 3 hours by the time I showered and prepped and ready for the day, where I was kind of really just priming my body, doing all these things. I was really focusing on just body, physical development. And when I listened to that thing that Alex said around if you're working 80 hours a week and not getting the results, you're doing the wrong things. And so one, area that I found that was really challenging for me is I didn't have enough time in my day to have for just me, on good, solid, deep work and focus time. There's no distractions, there's no notifications, there's nothing at all, zero. And so I kind of shifted my whole entire routine and my whole entire day structure from wake up at 4 a.m. and do 3 hours of this random shit, to wake up and just immediately face the biggest thing that I know I need to do for the day. And massive change in terms of benefit, in terms of seeing my business grow, in terms of seeing things that I know that I need to do get done and actually get done really well, because I've got this incredibly sharp mind in the morning. I have black coffee and I just sit in front of my computer and and I prepare the night before, what's the thing you're going to do for 4 hours in the morning? Well, just that. Okay, awesome. And I have no meetings, no communication, nothing until 8:30. So I've got 4.5 hours of just uninterrupted, deep focus, 5 days a week. So it's 20, maybe plus the weekends. I work all day Sunday, so it's 30 fucking hours of just clean, focused brain, And so that was a big thing that I had to think differently about, and created such a massive measurable benefit. But I resisted for a long time, because I was nah man, no fucking morning routine, bro. This thing's dialed in. I'm really dialed in. I'm really done. I'm gonna train. And the other thing as well was I had to get over the belief, because I now go and train in the middle of the day, right? And I had to get over the belief that my team and all these people around me would think that I'm lazy from going to the gym in the middle of the day while they're working. And I was no, I've got to lead by example. I'm going to be slapping the keyboard at 4 a.m. and I'm going to be slapping the keyboard at 9 p.m. No one can see me not produce. Massive identity shift, where I was what are you doing? It's not actually producing the result. And so I shifted everything around, created so much overall benefit, but it was really quite challenging because of all those beliefs that I had to kind of get over and overcome. Now it's I want what I want, and I tell, don't fucking talk to me, I'm going to the gym. I don't care. You know what I mean? Do your job, get it done. I'm going to the gym. I need to. Unless you want to wake up at 4 a.m. and join me, do your fucking job. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's really, really, really changed. And so the challenge off the back of that is to, because of what I've said and because of the anchor there of like, if you're going to do it anyway, do it now. I would recommend the listeners to find something that you already know what it is, and probably a few of the things that we spoke about triggered, responses of like, oh man, I got the same thing, or oh, I should probably do that, or I should probably speak to my wife, or I should probably, do that fucking program, whatever it is. There's the thing that everyone knows that they should do. And I just encourage you to apply that. If you're going to do it anyway, do it now.
Boom.
If that was the only thing you did and you got nothing else out of this whole fucking random rant, just like one thing, that would create the most measurable value. And maybe just tag me on Instagram and be like, hey dude, I did this thing, or message me or something, or message you. I don't care. Like something that you can do yourself, like that will create the biggest impact.
Sweet. And where can people find you?
I don't actually spend tons of time on socials, so
Where can they buy your stuff?
that's quite challenging. And it's probably follow me on socials. I'm going to be more active there this year. I've made a commitment to building my brand again and kind of doing it in a way that's very authentic and very kind of real with a lot of the stuff that I know and I feel really confident about sharing. So follow me on there. Just Instagram, probably the best place. Sasha _ Caravat. Yeah, I'd say that's the best place where I'm, considering all the platform usage, probably the most active.
And what about
I'm sorry if I don't reply for a few days.
If people want to get to like jump onto your ecom programs and stuff that you're doing, where can they go for that?
I would say Instagram is probably the best place. You can go onto my website, just ecomcapital.com, and you can learn about all the programs there. There's all details and videos and case studies and examples of what we do there. So if you want to check it out in detail, you can do it on the website. Or otherwise, we can catch up in due course on Instagram.
Yeah, sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, bro.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Dude.
That's right. Thank you.